In December 2003, a young Dutch woman who was studying in Cape Town went on a road trip. Along the way, she met a man who became her travel companion. Not long after, she went missing. In April 2003, 24-year-old Dutch student Marleen Konings arrived at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology in Bellville, just outside Cape Town. For her, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. She was excited. She always wanted to visit South Africa. Her opportunity came when she was selected as part of an exchange program between her institution in Holland and CPUT.
I met Marleen around April 2003. She was one of two people joining our program in that year as the third group of students from Hogeschool Enschede in the Netherlands on a student exchange program into our multimedia technology program.
Marleen worked with a fellow Dutch student, Eva Schafers, and other students on an AIDS awareness multimedia project.
And they really endeared themselves to the students and staff because of their energy and, the vibrancy around this whole project.
Marleen enjoyed life in Cape Town and would often spend weekends away from campus, attending parties and visiting friends in the townships.
And so I would often hear on Mondays that they've been to various places. I did express some concern that they should, in fact, be quite conscious of the possibilities of crime and so on.
Towards the end of the year, Marleen started finishing off her project.
So the final project presentations were done sort of at the beginning of November. And then Marleen then spent the next few weeks compiling her reports for her own institution. And of course it required some reports to be signed off in terms of activities and her contribution to the projects as they unfolded here at our university. And then she had, by the end of November, completed all of that and presented to me to sign off as a sort of supervisor locally, to then be sent to her supervisor at Hogeschool Enschede.
Marleen was excited about doing some sightseeing before she was due to leave South Africa. She planned to travel with Eva along the Garden Route, a scenic coastal drive that stretches over hundreds of kilometers from Cape Town to Port Elizabeth. She told Professor Alexander about it.
At that time, I remember distinctly talking to them because, again, with this sort of heightened awareness of crime around the festive season, I spoke to them and I asked them to be very careful. And they assured me that they know how to manage the situation. They had made proper arrangements for accommodation along the route. They had a good rental car. And that is then, I was satisfied.
At the same time, another person more than 1,000 kilometers away was also planning a trip down south to the coast. In the town of Carolina, in the province of Mpumalanga, Ferdinand Mustard is hastily preparing for a new life in the Cape, where he hopes nobody will recognize him. He plans to take on a new identity. He'd been staying with a prison warder, Peter Moorman, and his wife. But Mostert needed to move on quickly after a plan to steal from his host didn't go as intended.
I beat him in prison. He was a prisoner here, Carolina prison.
At some stage, Mostert was at the Carolina prison where he met a correctional officer, one Moorman, and they became friends. Well, Moorman actually felt sorry for him, because, as I said, psychopaths are friendly people.
I was quiet and helpful and nice, actually. He didn't do anything wrong. He helped in the house, helped the wife, helped with the kids. He was a nice person.
Some days later, Moorman wanted to go and buy a new vehicle, and he had 15,000 rand under the seat, and Mostert thought, oh, I'm going to do this food poisoning trick again. And so they gave me something. Moorman actually became unconscious.
He must give me something to drink on the way, because I was out. I didn't know anything. I think he poisoned me with something. Then he took me to the hospital, booked me in everything, and came back home. And on his way, when he came back to Carolina, he phoned my brother and told him I'm in hospital.
Meanwhile, Marlene and Ava's holiday plans were scuppered when Ava had to suddenly return home to the Netherlands. Marlene decided to push ahead with the trip alone.
Unfortunately, it was sort of, there was an intervention in that Eva Schaefer's mom fell ill. And then Eva was required to go back to the Netherlands, which kind of then left Marlene on her own.
Marlene left Cape Town in a rented Toyota Taz. She headed straight for Port Elizabeth.
No, I'm actually going to go to Mossel Bay. Yeah, the garden route, yeah.
The day before
Marlene's
Christmas,
beautiful.
Marlene arrived in Mossel Bay on her return journey to Cape Town. She found accommodation here at the Park House Lodge. Here she met a very friendly Ferdinand Mustard, who introduced himself as Robert Cowley from Botswana. Marlene was impressed when she heard that he was a pilot.
Befriended her and he chatted her up. And he told her he was the head pilot of the Red Cross in Africa. So she was now impressed with this man. And then he also informed her he's also leaving for Cape Town on the 27th. He has some appointment there with the Red Cross, to discuss his future career.
Mostert did not have his own car, and the unsuspecting Marlene offered him a lift back to Cape Town.
One felt more protected because now she has a male in a car. It's not a girl alone, and if something happens, at least he can offer some protection. So that's why she took him along.
Marlene was lonely and seemed to be enjoying the company of the older man who went by the name Robert Cowley. They spent Christmas Day together and set off the following day on their journey to Cape Town. Along the way, Mostert slipped some pills into Marlene's energy drink, just as he'd done with the prison warder, Peter Mulman.
By the time they reached Riversdale, she was already feeling sick. He must have put something in a cool drink.
Once in Riversdale, Marlene was treated at the local hospital. She and Mostert continued on their journey, stopping off next at the historic town of Swellandam, where they stayed at a guest house run by Lulu Roland.
26 Desember het hulle 'n oproep gemaak om te hoor of ons 'n kamer beskikbaar het. En toe hy alleen gekom om na die kamer te kyk en hy het alleen besluit die kamer is reg. En ek het daai aand van 26 Desember het ek haar glad nie gesien nie.
When Mostert signed the guest register, he once again used his alias, Robert Cowley. He changed his story slightly, telling his hosts that he was a retired Air Botswana pilot.
Hulle wou ook nie ontbyt hê nie, en omdat hulle nie ontbyt eet nie, het hulle toe nou sommer daai aand, toe hulle nou ingekom het hulle betaal, en die volgende oggend is hulle toe nou weer op pad uit. Hy het betaal, kontant.
Ferdinand told them that they were heading towards Berrydale to a friend's farm.
Hy wou vir haar gaan wys hoe mooi dit daar is en so. Maar daai selfde middag van die volgende dag, die 27ste, toe kom hulle daai middag, seker so by 6:30 die aand, toe is hulle weer terug. Toe sê hy, nee maar, sy voel siek, sy's glad nie lekker nie, haar maag was ook blykbaar daai vorige nag baie ontsteld geweest. Blijkbaar kon hulle nie 'n dokter in Riversdale kry en hulle 'n dokter in Montetjie gesien. En ek kon ook aan haar gesien het dat sy lyk moeg en gesig was rooi en nat gesweet en so.
They slept over again, sharing the same room.
Hy het vir my heel wat ouer gelyk as sy. Maar die tweede aand toe hulle kom, toe is die dubbelbedkamer beskikbaar. En toe sê ek ook vir hom vanaand het hy 'n keuse. Hy kan nou besluit of die enkelbedkamer of die dubbelbedkamer. Toe sê hy nee, die kamer met die enkelbeddens is reg. Toe het hulle weer dieselfde kamer gehad. En daai oggend toe kom sê sy vir my, sy wil betaal, maar hy is nou siek. Hy voel nie lekker nie.
Marlene offered to look after Mustard after the apparent kindness he had shown her when she was sick.
En sy wil graag aangaan want daar's vriende van haar wat vir haar wag, wat sy in die Kaap moet ontmoet. Maar hy het nou so mooi na haar gekyk toe sy siek was, sy wil nou by hom bly tot hy nou ook beter is.
Marlene sent a message to a friend on the 28th of December. She said she was on her way to Cape Town with a friend and that they had both been suffering from food poisoning. After that, she didn't respond to any further calls.
Ons moet toe vir vriende gaan kuier dit in Franskraal, Hermanus. En toe sê ek maar hulle moet bly, dan kan hulle nou maar totdat hy nou beter voel, al is dit nou tot maandag of dinsdag toe en hulle hoef nou nie vir daai tyd te betaal nie en dan moet hy net vir my die veiligheidshekse sleutel inskiet as hulle gaan.
It was the last time anyone would see Marlene alive. Mustard also left a curious handwritten message.
Hy het vir my 'n nota gelos om dankie te sê vir die verblyf, maar hy het ook sy nota afgesluit met watch the local newspaper. En dit het nou iets in my wakker gemaak. Dit het my laat wonder, wat beteken dit? En daai maandagoggend toe bel hy vir my, toe sê hy is baie beter en hy wil nou net vir my dankie sê dat hulle hier kon bly en sy's ook okay. En hulle gaan nou ry. En toe het ek nog vir hom gesê op die foon, maak net seker jy skiet my sleutel in. Asseblief maak jy moet net die sleutel vir my inskiet. Toe sê nog ja, hy sal die sleutel los.
Back on the road, Marlene and Mustard made a long detour through the countryside, passing through small towns and villages.
One of the best, I think it's the best jobs in the club. One of the best.
But Mustard seemed to have something more on his mind than a pleasant road trip.
They stopped the place there and they saw there was a little buck running over the road. Well, I can't say exactly what happened, I'm just speculating. He probably said to Marlene, let's have a look at the little buck. But he had his armed with his firearm, which he stole at some Lumine's house a couple of years before. And as they went into this dense, bushy area, because if you want inside, no one could be able to see you from the road. And they shot her.
En toe ons terugkom van die tyd van vriende af, toe is hulle weg en die sleutel is hy agtergelaat nie. En ek bel toe dadelik nou op sy selnommer, maar ek kry hom nêrens in die hande nie.
In Cape Town, Marlene's friends became increasingly anxious after not hearing from her. 2 days after she was expected back, her friends called the police and reported that she was missing. After a week, and still with no sign of Marlene, Lulu Roland's neighbor pointed out a worrying newspaper article to her.
Volgens wat ek vir haar vertel het van die Hollandse meisie en die man wat by my gebly het, wat die sleutel moes agterlaat, sy het 'n vermoede dis die meisiekind wat vermis is in die koerant. Nou ja, toe ek dan die koerant oopmaak, toe sien ek maar dit is sy.
I received a phone call from Bus, the head of department at Enschede, and he was in shock. And he said to me that they've not had contact from Marlene for a while. And apparently, Marlene had had this arrangement with her parents, her mother in particular, I think, to communicate with her on a daily basis.
As the days passed and Marlene's disappearance remained unexplained, her distraught parents flew in from Holland. Cape Police were baffled. Dutch detectives arrived to assist with the investigation. Local and international media piled more pressure on detectives to find her. Western Cape Police Commissioner Mzwandile Petros appointed the then Captain Piet Viljoen to head the investigation. Dubbed Bloedhond or Bloodhound by the media, Viljoen was one of the Cape's most experienced detectives. He is now a high-ranking investigator with South Africa's elite investigative unit, the Hawks. Mostert left a trail, and soon Viljoen was on it.
The Taz was found in Colesberg. The whole car was washed clean, very nice. He just made one mistake in the cabio, in the booklet of the car. One print of his was found. Private investigator of Bloemfontein by the surname of Rousseau identified from a cell phone, from Marleen Konings' cell phone, a cell number which identified that we might be looking for a guy with the name of Ferdinand Mostert.
Despite doing a good job of covering his tracks, Mostert slipped up and gave police the crucial breakthrough they needed.
He used Marlene's Telkom card in a public phone booth near a guest house. And Telkom's system picked up a signal, so showed in this control room, I presume, that card is being used at that phone booth near this guest house in Uppington.
Viljoen made a dash halfway across the country to Uppington, closing in on a guest house near the public phone. There he found Mostert, who was still pretending to be Robert Cowley.
You want us to come in?
No. Come in.
He tried to convince the police of his bogus identity by showing them a badly forged identity document.
Mr. Cowley, sir.
They searched his room and found a gun.
While we were driving, he started opening up with little pieces of information that he says he's seeing trees, he's seeing a garage, he sees a pass near Barrydale, between Barrydale and Swellandam. And once we got in Trudeau Pass in Barrydale, he made me stop at a certain spot. And he said to me, he sees this lady down there. I sent one of my colleagues down into the bushy area there. The colleague screamed, yes, he is. And she was found shot through the back of her head.
Police have found a body in the vicinity of Barrydale and Trados Park this afternoon. Investigation at the crime scene will strongly indicate that the deceased person is Marleen Konings.
Het is onbeschrijfelijk.
Dat is niet te beschrijven, dat is... Er zijn geen woorden voor dat.
The case quickly got underway in Cape Town's High Court in late January 2004. During his investigation, Viljoen stumbled across evidence that made him suspect that Mostert had been involved in a much earlier murder. Michael John Victor had been found dead in 1997 near Hartbeespoort Dam, outside Johannesburg.
They were together in the same prison in Cullinan, near Pretoria. And I think it's either end of 1996 or beginning 1997, Victor was first released. And a few months later, Mostert was released. So he contacted him, and eventually he shared a flat with Victor in Randburg. So on a certain Monday, it was here in April 1997, Victor didn't turn up at work. We suspected that time he was killed and shot by Mostert. His body was found at Hartbeespoort Dam.
Mostert was found in possession of Victor's property, including a car, credit cards, and identity document. Mostert's modus operandi seemed the same in the cases of the prison warder and Marlene. Both were given a drug to incapacitate them in order to steal their valuables.
Then he found a witness that was working with Victor at the furniture shop. And he had interviewed her, and she said, and he took a statement from her. The other police wasn't aware of her Piet Viljoen took a statement from this woman, the witness, and says, no, I saw Victor in the company of Mr. Mostert the evening before Victor had food poisoning.
Mostert refused the state-appointed lawyer. He decided to handle his own defense. He pleaded guilty to fraud charges, but not guilty to the murder of Konings, as well as the killing of paroled convict Michael John Victor.
But he dismissed his previous attorney. He was appointed by the Legal Aid Board, and he decided to defend himself. That, in my view, didn't make any difference as far as the eventual outcome was concerned. Because even if he had an attorney, how were they going to argue away all this evidence?
Prosecutor Teron conceded that the case was based on circumstantial evidence, but that the only reasonable inference was that he shot Marleen intentionally.
It was a close-range shot, a meter or two. That's what the pathologist testified. And then he took a car keys, he did the same way he did with Victor. Took the vehicle, camera, cell phone, everything. And then he carried on towards Plettenberg Bay, where he also stayed in various guest houses.
Marleen's parents and friends attended the court proceedings. They also visited Lulu Roland and the guest house where Marleen last slept.
Hulle gryp na elke halmpie wat hulle kan hoor. Ja, hulle wou alles weet en wat sy gepraat het en hulle wou sien waar sy die laaste keer geslaap het.
Despite his confession, Mostert stuck to his story that he had shot Marleen by accident.
The confession said that he killed her, but accidentally. Everything was an accident. There was a buck, and they jumped out. She got a fright, screamed, and he got a fright and pulled the trigger.
How does one shoot someone else accidentally on close range? If he wasn't apprehended, he might have killed 2 other people by now, or 3. But the fact remains, he was found guilty of murder with dolus directus. That means he had the intention to kill. Dolus directus.
After a short trial, the state closed its case. On the 10th of February 2004, Mostert was found guilty of the premeditated murder of Marleen Konings and fellow prison inmate Michael John Victor.
Geeft ook een gevoel van, wat Lotte misschien ook wil zeggen, van, dat hij gewoon levenslang krijgt. Dat heet levenslang, maar dat beslissen ze hier. Maar wij hebben ook levenslang. En dat zal hij zeker moeten krijgen.